actually to have Mr. Peace back with us. Now, fourth graders remember Mr. Peace from last year. Third graders have not seen this yet, Mr. Peace. So we're very, very excited to have Mr. Peace back with us. Hopefully we will feel a great sense of peace when we leave here today. The message, boys and girls, is incredibly important. I want you to listen very carefully. I know we're going to have some fun in between as well as we learn about how to treat one another with respect, with kindness, and there's no bullying allowed here in this building. And Mr. Peace is going to talk about that. So are we ready to get some peace going? All right. All the way from Michigan, we have Mr. Peace visiting with us. Let's give it a round.
All right, thank you so much. It's great to be back here and good to meet some new third graders here too. You can bring me down a little bit in the microphone. My name is Kevin or Mr. Peace, and it's an honor to be here with you guys this morning. 2 fingers up for peace. I got my peace sign on my back, and I see some of you guys wearing my shirt, the One Race Human, so thank you. And thank you for all these signs to welcome me. This is pretty sweet. But we're going to open with some hip-hop, if that's cool with you guys. We'll start that track up in the back. 2 fingers up for peace. Just like this. Start us back one more time. All right. Mitchell Middle School, I got something to tell you. That's why I'm here today to wrap this to home. So listen to me and hear what I have to say. Hey, it's Mr. Peace, yeah, and you all my family. Let's break it down and start sharing about our feelings about a new way that'll help promote healing. But be honest, pinky promise if you really want peace, and if you do, then show your hands, please. I mean for real, we need to take responsibility by including others when we have the opportunity. At lunch or recess or even in the hallways, any chance to be a friend throughout the whole school day. Cause with peace, I need all your support. I need everyone to step it up. Grades K to 4 and 5, be good role models while demonstrating non-violence, put an end to all of the hate that you see. Yo, you gotta have each other's back through the lowest of lows and the darkest shade of black. Everything else, everything we look back. Peace brings love, that's exactly what we lack. Like this, just let them say that you're peaceful. And if you got peace, I got peace too. I'm saying whoa, just let them say that you're peaceful. And in the words of Gandhi, peace be with you. Listen, make sure when I say peace, you all say in peace. Peace. And when I say peace, you all say out. Peace. Peace. And when I say be, you all say kind. Be. Be. And when I say show, you all say love. Show. Show. All right, now we're warmed up. Good job. Give yourself a round of applause. Nice. We got some future hip-hop artists here. All right, give me 5, 4, 3, 2, peace. So listen, Mitchell Middle School, it's so great to be back with you guys, all the way from Detroit, Michigan, to be here with you guys today, to share my heart with you guys. And for the new people that haven't seen me until today, I just want to let you guys know every breath that I take this morning is going to be worth your time. This slide behind me, we got Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., right? And you know, his dream was that one day his children would be judged, not because of the color of their skin or what's on the outside, but more importantly, to be judged by the content of their character, what's on the inside, right? And like my shirt says, one race, human. You can go to the next slide. One race, human. That means we treat people around us, everyone around us, as human beings before anything else. That we see them as human beings before anything else. But it's not easy to do, but we have to, because we're all part of a global family, guys. We're all part of a family within these walls here at Mitchell, but we're also part of a bigger family, part of this whole world, where everybody should be our family. And look, I was just helping out with my youth group. I'm also a full-time youth pastor at a church, so I travel on my off days all across the U.S. I speak to people from age 5 up to age 105. But I was with my youth group, and we were at a soup kitchen in Detroit, Michigan, and we were helping serve the homeless and people that needed a meal. And we were in this assembly line, and I'm serving the mashed potatoes, and the person to the left is serving the gravy. And we get a tray, a plate, and just keep plopping it on and giving it down and giving it to the next person in line. Well, the lady standing next to me, she told me that she was there 2 months ago, 2 months earlier. And she was doing the same thing, just serving randomly with her head down. And then she randomly looked up, and standing across from her was her brother. And she hadn't seen him in 15 years. He fell in some hard times, and he was living on the streets. And he came to this soup kitchen for a meal. And she dropped what she was doing, and she ran across the counter and gave him a hug, and they started crying. But the whole point of the story was, that's how we should be treating everybody all the time. Like they're our brother. Like they're our sister, right? And look, I have a friend, this is before you guys were born, but some of your teachers will remember this. But before you guys were born in 2003, there was a power outage all across the eastern United States. Cell phones didn't work. Can you imagine going 3 days without your cell phone, Snapchat, Instagram? Can you imagine that? No. But listen, 5, 4, 3, 2, peace. Peace. I love peace. But listen, my friend in 2003, he was living in Harlem, New York, and I was living in Michigan. The only thing open by me was like a Wendy's, so I went there for a junior bacon cheeseburger. But for 3 days, no power, everything was out, cell phones didn't work, all this stuff. And my friend's living in Harlem, New York, and he wrote a letter to the New York Times newspaper. And it got published by the editor, a letter to the editor. And what he noticed is as soon as the lights went out, all these people from all walks of life, whether they were African American or Caucasian or Asian or Hispanic, they all came together to help each other when the lights went out in this time of need. But then what he realized, what he saw happen, is as soon as the lights came back on, the power came back on, so did the racism, and so did the judgments, and so did the hate, and so did the violence. It's like it didn't even matter. But during this crisis, everybody didn't care where people were born, how they were born, if they walk differently, or talk differently, or see differently, or hear differently, or what the skin color was, or if they speak a different language. All they cared about was them as human beings. And we just saw this with Hurricane Harvey in Houston. You saw it with Irma down in Florida. You saw it with Maria, and now Nate, Hurricane Nate. And all these hurricanes, tornadoes, all these disasters, guys, people come together to help each other out like their brother and sister during these tragedies. But it shouldn't have to take a crisis or a tragedy to wake us up and finally start treating people the way we're supposed to. We should already be doing it, right? And showing love. But sometimes things get in the way when we don't show love. You go to the next slide. So I want to share some stuff with you guys. And this is going to hit your heart. But it's what's going on with people your age across this country. There was a special needs boy, Caden Cope. He was from Texas. And he was playing with his friends, people that said they were his friend. But see, he was always getting teased by these so-called friends, and he learned a lot slower than his classmates, so he didn't get it that they were actually making fun of him a lot of the times. Well, they were playing one day in a field by where they lived in their neighborhood, and they were playing with gas. And they were going to build a fire outside by the shed. And one of the boys thought it'd be funny to sprinkle some gas towards Caden. And unfortunately, it was so hot that day, the brush caught fire in the field, and Caden caught fire. And 20% of his body was burned. You go to the next slide. And look, the reason I'm telling you this, he's out of ICU now and he's doing better. But they go to interview these 4 boys, and 3 out of 4 said that they wanted to tell the person whose idea it was, they wanted to tell him to stop, but they were too afraid. Because they thought if they told him to stop, then they wouldn't be accepted anymore and part of the popular crowd. So someone's life was less important than standing up for what's right. 10 years old. Next slide. This is Lanny Turpin. Lanny Turpin is from Alabama. She's 9 years old. 9 years old. And a special needs girl moved to their school. She moved to their school, and Lanny told her friend, she said, I'm going to go ask that girl to be my friend. And her friend didn't like that. So instead of saying, I'd rather you not be her friend, she pushed Lanny down and gave her a black eye and a concussion. 9 years old. Next slide. This is Jordan Jackson. He's 8 years old. Is anybody here 8 years old? Hands down. He's 8 years old, from Louisiana. He's from Louisiana. And he's walking home from school with his sister one day, and these classmates of his, they shouted out, they said, go back to the cotton farm. And he said, that's racist. And they said, no, it's not. And so he started walking faster. Well, they started throwing wood chips at him and his sister, and he tried to block her. So they pulled him down on the ground, and they pulled his arm so hard, it actually broke. And he's 8 years old. And I just told the first group, I spoke in San Diego, California, by the Pacific Ocean. I spoke there back in April of this year to an elementary school. And after my talk, I had a line of 50 students that were crying, that wanted to share something on their heart. And this one second grader, this African American boy, came up to me. He said, Mr. Peace, people are telling me to go back to where I was born, to go back to Africa. He said, I don't understand. I was born in Los Angeles, California. And then there's a first grader, this Hispanic boy came up to me. He said, Mr. Peace, my classmates are telling me, speak English. He said, I don't get it. I'm talking English to you right now. And then this kindergartner, this 5-year-old, this Asian boy, came up to me. He said, Mr. Peace, I have classmates and they're telling me, open your eyes. He said, I don't understand. This is how I'm born. This is how my face looks. And so here's my question. Do you think that 5-year-old, that 6-year-old, that 7-year-old, that 8-year-old, that 9-year-old, that 10-year-old thought about those things on their own? No. Guys, what they did is that they were just mirrors. People say all the time, they tell me, kids are cruel. I say, no, they're not. They're just mirrors. Which means what you're taught here or at home, you can choose to reflect. You can choose to reflect love or hate. It's up to you. We have a choice. But is it safe to say that what happened to these students, and I know it's hard to kind of see some of this, but this is really what's going on across our country with people your age. But is it safe to say that what happened to these students is going to be on their heart for the rest of their life? Yeah, in a negative way, right? So we can choose if it's going to be negative or positive by our words, by our actions, by our thoughts, right? So I want to share with you a more positive story. And this is from a middle school from Michigan. It's from a middle school in Michigan where I live. And this football team, some of the players, they decided they were going to include a boy who was special needs to make him feel welcome. So we're going to watch that video and then we're going to talk about it, so pay attention.
We end tonight with the football play of the football play of the month. It was executed with amazing precision by the Eagles, the Olivet Eagles. Steve Hartman has the play and the post-game analysis on the road.
Between classes, they schemed and conspired. For weeks, the football players here at Olivet Middle School in Olivet, Michigan secretly planned their remarkable play.
Did anybody go, this is a crazy idea?
No, everyone was in on it.
But like the coaches didn't know anything about it. So we were like going behind the back.
I've just never heard of a team coming up with a plan to not score.
It's just like to make someone's day, make someone's week, just make them happy.
The play, which was 2 plays actually, happened at a home game earlier this month. The first part of their plan was to try to get as close to the goal line as possible without scoring, even if it meant taking a dive on the 1-yard line, which it did. The crowd was not happy. Quarterback Parker Smith.
But us kids knew, hey, we got this. This is our time. This is Keith's time.
Keith Orr is the little kid in the brown jacket. He's learning disabled, struggles with boundaries, but in the sweetest possible way. Because of his special nature, it's no surprise that Keith embraces his fellow football players. What is surprising is how they have embraced him.
We thought it'd be cool to do something for him.
Because we really wanted to prove that he was part of our team and he meant a lot to us.
Nothing can really explain getting a touchdown when you've never had one before.
Which brings us to part 2 of their play. If you didn't see Keith, it's because they were so protective of him. But he was in the middle of that rush.
And when you crossed the goal line, what was that like?
Awesome. It was like, did he just score a touchdown?
Get your camera out.
I'm like, oh, dude, I can't.
Keith's parents, Carrie and Jim, almost missed the moment, but they got the significance.
Somebody's always going to have his back from now until the day he graduates.
She's right. When the football team decides you're cool, pretty much everyone follows suit. Today, Keith is a new kid. Although by no means was he the only one who was profoundly changed.
What was it like for you?
It was like once I saw him going, I was smiling like about like here.
Wide receiver Justice Miller.
Like nothing could wipe that smile off my face.
Why did it affect you so much?
Because like he's never been like cool or popular, and he went from being like pretty much a nobody to making everyone's day.
Justice admits the play wasn't his idea.
I would have not really thought about that.
He says it never crossed his mind to give Keith any glory.
Well, I kind of went from being somebody that mostly cared about myself and my friends to caring about everyone and trying to make everyone's day and everyone's life.
Which may just make that touchdown the most successful football play of all time. Steve Hartman on the road in Olivet, Michigan.
All right.
We end tonight with the football play of the month.
Bring my mic up a little bit. Thank you. So listen, Mitchell, this is so cool, right, this story, because these football players who wanted to do something special for Keith, who was born differently than a lot of us, it took a lot of courage. It took a lot of courage for that quarterback to take a knee right before the 1-yard line and not score, because all the parents got mad. They're like, why didn't you score a touchdown? What's wrong with you? And then, the other team, they were like baffled. They were surprised. They're like, why didn't you walk in the end zone? You had an open path. Why did you stop? But what's so sweet is that once they started to show the parents and that team what they were doing, it changed everybody's heart. So this other team, They could have tried to block them and not let Keith come in, but they let him come in so he didn't get hurt. And what they realized is that who won or lost the game, it wasn't as important as making Keith feel welcome into this world. And it started changing everybody's heart. And he was so sweet is that he wasn't just accepted with the football team. From that day forward, at the entire school, he was accepted by the entire school. Everybody. That was the normal thing to do now, was to include him, right? And all of us got that power, guys, to do what's right. But it's not easy. Can you go to the next slide? This is my friend, Irene Kapko. Everybody say Irene Kapko. Irene Kapko. Irene Kapko is 103 years old. 103. That's a little bit older than you. But listen, Irene, I was at her birthday party, eating some chocolate cake with frostings and sprinkled and fudge, and oh, it was good. And I said, Irene, you're 103 years old. Tell me about your life. Tell me the good times, the bad times, the glad times, the mad times, the sad times, the times that rhyme with ad. And she said, Mr. Peace, her most painful memory was in 4th grade. Where are my 4th graders at? All right, hands down, hands down. She was in 4th grade, and this happened over 90 years ago. But she remembered it like it happened yesterday, because it was still raw in her heart, the pain. She said, Mr. Peace, my most painful memory was in 4th grade. I was in the front of the class. I was giving a presentation, and this boy came up from behind her, and he teased her because she was short, because of her height, and because of her weight, because she was heavier than some of her classmates. And it just humiliated her in front of everybody, and it just hurt her heart so bad. It wasn't until she was 40 years old that she finally forgave this boy in her heart. And sometimes the right thing to do is to forgive, but it's not always easy. And then she became a youth worker to help students who felt like her, who felt like they were in pain too. She became healed to kind of help other people out. And then, one time I was speaking at a school, actually in Connecticut, and a 7th grade teacher came down and she interrupted my assembly in front of everybody. She interrupted me. She said, hey Mr. Peace, everybody, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I just got to share something on my heart. And she got on the microphone and she said, her most painful memory was 35 years ago, back in 7th grade. And her first name was Kate. She said she was the new girl at school. She wasn't that popular or cool. And this group of popular girls came up to Kate right before lunch, and they said, hey Kate, you can sit with us today at lunch. Go get your lunch, and then come sit by us. And she's like, are you serious? Are you joking? Is this a joke? They said, no. Go get your lunch, and then come sit by us. So she gets her lunch out of the lunch line, her tray, and she starts walking to their table. And as soon as she sits down, they all stand up on their chairs. And they shout across the lunchroom so everybody can hear them. And they say, hey everybody, look at Kate. She came in 4 nice clothes. And she dropped her lunch and ran out crying. And you see, Kate's parents didn't have a lot of money growing up. So sometimes she had to wear the same outfit 3 times a week to school. And she was bullied and teased because of that. But then, she finally forgave these girls in her heart, and she became healed in her heart. But then she became a 7th grade teacher, so that what happened to her back in 7th grade would never happen again to her students on her watch at her school. To choose what was right, even though it was really, really, really hard. And I have a friend named Nick, and he's in his 30s. And back in 5th grade, this is 3rd and 4th, right? My 5th graders are in class, okay, hi 5th graders somewhere, wherever you're at. But back in 5th grade, him and his friends, they made it their job to put down the student who sat alone at lunch. And for 1 year straight, 1 year in a row, every day, they called that kid a loser, and they called him a loner. Every day for 1 year. His name was Chris. Every day for a year. So then 6th grade rolls around, and in this school district, 6th grade was the start of middle school. Well, guess what? They put 3 middle schools that summer, 3 different buildings. They put them all together into one building. So now there were a lot more students at this new school. And my friend Nick, who was kind of popular at the old elementary school, his popularity dropped quite a bit because there were so many more students now. He kind of got lost in the crowd. And so the first day of 6th grade, he was forced to sit alone at lunch too. And guess who he had to sit next to? Chris, the boy that he put down. And he goes and sits down next to him, and Chris looks at him, and he says, "It stinks, doesn't it? It stinks." Because now he felt how Chris felt, right? Well, he apologized to him. They became really good friends. And he's also a youth pastor like me now, helping kids out. So he also became healed. He forgave himself. He asked for forgiveness. And that's sometimes what we have to do to include other people, right? To do what's right. But guys, this takes courage. I remember being back in elementary school, and I was pretty popular. I had a lot of friends. I was good at sports, really good at soccer. Anybody good at soccer? Okay, hands down. Well, guess what? I was playing soccer out on recess, and the score was tied, and the bell was just about to ring for recess to end. And my friend Pat was in goal. He was playing goal on my team. And Pat was kind of like Kate. He didn't have too many friends, and he wasn't that good at sports, and he also didn't have a lot of money, so sometimes he wore the same outfit a couple times a week to school. Well, he let in the game-winning goal just as the bell rang for recess. And I remember everybody on my team except me circling around him, making like a circle around him. And they said, "What's wrong with you? How could you let that happen?" And one boy put his leg behind him, another person pushed, and he fell to the ground on the dirt. And I remember what I did, clearly. I stood there, and I watched, and I did nothing. Because I was too afraid. I was too afraid that if I stuck up for him, then I wouldn't be accepted anymore. So then Pat and I, we got dinner 5 years after high school. 5 years after high school. We had dinner, and he looked at me and he said, hey, Mr. Peace, I needed you back in elementary school, and back in middle school, and back in high school, and you weren't there for me. And it breaks my heart to say that to you guys, but that's the truth. And Pat and I are great friends now. Sometimes he comes with me to speak. And we formed some anti-bullying clubs, him and I, across this country at a few schools. So, you know, it was a hard thing for me to realize, but it takes a lot of courage, guys, to really do what's right. But we have to do what's right? And we have to include others as a part of a family. A lot of people, some of you guys actually follow me on Instagram. My Instagram name is Mr. Peace Geese. And people are like, Mr. Peace, why do you have geese after your name? Well, I'm going to tell you. Next slide. So look, geese are always in the shape of a flying V, right? Can I get a few volunteers? A couple volunteers. I'll take you right here. Only going to call you if you're sitting on your bottom, respectful, quiet. I'll take you right here. Yeah, you both can come. And we'll take, let me see, I'll take this right here. Right, come on. I'll take you as a goose. Okay, right up to the front. How many geese do I have so far? Let's see. Okay. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 geese. Peace geese. Peace fleece. I will take you right there. Yeah, it's you. All right, give a round of applause. Okay, so you're going to have goose come out over here. Hold this goose right here, okay? And then you're going to come right here, okay? Right about here. Right about here, you're gonna come, okay? A little bit more this way, okay? And you go right here. On over here. All right. And you right here. So the reason it's Mr. P's Geese is because there's so many lessons from geese we can take away from what they do that talk about how we're supposed to treat people. So listen, say that a goose gets sick. Why don't you guys start to flap your wings? Okay, so say that a goose gets sick. Okay, and then they get sick and they end up having to fly down and take a little rest, right? Or maybe they get hurt. 2 geese always come out of the formation, out of the flying V, to come and help that goose. So 2 geese always come over to help this goose feel better until they do feel better, and then they'll come and get back into the pack or with a different formation that's flying by and then catch up later to the other group. But they do this as like a buddy system. This person's feeling down or not feeling the greatest, not feeling safe, and these 2 geese come to cheer this person up, to make them feel better, to stand up for them, just like we're supposed to, right? So then they come back into the flying V. You guys go back to your spot, okay? You know how the flying V works. You've seen the Mighty Ducks, right? Okay. So then what happens is that sometimes certain geese, they say, well, you know what? I'm going to try to just fly alone. I don't really need my family. I don't really need them. I'm just going to fly on my own. Well, guess what? It's 70% harder for geese to fly alone than it is when they're in the V shape. Because what happens is, the wind resistance with their wings, it makes it easier for all these geese in the back to fly. So pretty soon, even though they try to go it alone and do their own thing, they end up wanting to come back to this family. See? And you've sometimes heard geese, and what do? What kind of noise do they make? Let's hear your, one second. Let's hear your honk. Okay, how about a goose honk? Okay, goose honk. They're pretty much the same. Let's see if we got any different honks. Honk. Okay, that was a different honk. But listen. Geese honk. It's the goose call. But listen, Mitchell, these geese, the reason that they honk, it's usually all the geese behind the head goose. All the other geese will honk. It's the way that they encourage each other. That's actually them encouraging each other. And they're trying to lift the person up to help them want to fly stronger and be better. Because then when it's their turn to come to the front, you can take the goose, come to the front, and you go further back. That's what they're right here. Now this person's going to want to try harder because she's going to be encouraging him since she was encouraged when she was at the front. And these are lessons from geese. Give it up for these guys. Good job. So listen. Mitchell, 3-5. 4-3-2, peace. Thank you. So guys, if we get bullied though, if the bullying does happen or is currently going on, we have a choice how to respond for it. Usually the person that's bullying is hurting in their heart and they need love and they need compassion. And I had a student that sent me an email. He sent me an email 2 weeks after I spoke at his school. And he said he got tripped in the hallway 2 weeks after I spoke by this bully. And his first name was John. And he fell down and he got right back up and he walked over to the bully and he shook his hand and he smiled at him and said, "Have a great day." And the bully's mouth, as he's shaking his hand, just dropped. And everybody watching, their mouths dropped. They were like, because they were expecting him to run away or to cry or try to fight back and then fail. But he did the opposite. He did the thing that this bully, this person hurting, needed the most. He showed them love. And he also got his power back. He took his power back from the bully. And he also took away the bully's power over him just by showing kindness. But then you know what happens too is that sometimes if we are getting bullied and it doesn't stop and we've already tried to be kind, we told that person to stop, then the next step is to tell somebody, an adult or a teacher. But then I got kindergartners and even 12th graders that say, well, Mr. Peace, if I do that, then I'm a tattletale. But you're not a tattletale because people like Irene, something that happened to her, and that wasn't even bullying. That was a one-time action. One time. Bullying has to be over and over and over and over and over again on purpose to get power over somebody. But that was one action, it stayed on her heart for 90 years. So you can't tell me it's tattletaling when it comes to somebody's safety, when it comes to them feeling comfortable enough to come to school, right? We have to think about that. But the best thing we can do is to not even let this happen in the first place. Can I get one more volunteer? One volunteer? We'll take you right here. Yep. What's your name? Nicole, nice to see you. So listen, Nicole. Here's what I want you to do. Can you take your jacket off for a second? Okay. Not that you're going to get messy or anything. All right, put it right here. Come over here. So, do you know what this is? This is shaving. Okay? Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to spray a lot of shaving cream into this bucket. Go ahead. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, so now hold that can. I'm going to show our audience at home here. Viewing audience. Okay. All right. You see it? Okay. Now listen. And we're going to cheer Nicole on, okay? You have, take this bucket there. You have 10 seconds to get that shaving cream back into the can. Ready, go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and... All right, how do we do? Did you get it all back in? Looks like you got it back in. Let's just double check. Okay. There's still some left. You couldn't get it back in, huh? Okay. Well, give her a round of applause. Good job. So Mitchell, look. The reason that I talk about this example, whether it's shaving cream or toothpaste, that once it's out of that container, it's almost impossible to get it back in. If we had more time and the right technology, we could probably do it. But the idea is it's the same as our words and our actions. That once they're out, once we say them or do them, and if they're mean especially, it's hard to take them back, right? The damage has already been done. So the best thing to do is be aware of our actions, just like you saw with Caden and Lanny and Jordan, that we don't bully in the first place to hurt their feelings. But listen, it's always a choice, guys. It's always a choice. You guys remember being back in first grade? You guys remember? Okay. So listen, I spoke at a school, Mitchell. I came back 2 weeks later to have lunch with the students after spring break. And I'm going to be here for lunch today with you guys. But I was at a school, and I came back 2 weeks after I spoke to have lunch with the students. And this 7-year-old named Trey, he saw me in the cafeteria. He's like this tall. And he said, "Oh my gosh, it's Mr. Peace, Mr. Peace, please come here, Mr. Peace, please." I said, "Trey, what's going on?" He said, "Mr. Peace, do you remember when you told us to treat people with more love, respect, compassion, kindness?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I went home that night and I asked my dad to start treating me, my mom, and my sister with more kindness and respect and love. And he told me that his dad looked at him and said, "You don't ever talk to me like that. I'm an adult. Don't you ever talk to me like that." And he walked away. And Trey was so hurt. And he came back to school on fire, and his face was getting red. He said, "Mr. Peace, people are going to feel my heart. They're going to feel my pain." And I looked at him, like our eyes were locked. I said, "Trey, you still have a choice to be a great son to your mother, to be a great brother to your sister, and one day, if you break that cycle, a great father." And our eyes are locked. I see a tear coming down his cheek. And I'll never forget his next words. He looked at me and he said, "I like chicken." And I said, "What?" He said, "Mr. Peace, they're serving chicken tenders for lunch. You gotta try them, they're bomb." And I said, "What?" But this first grader's mind was on to the next topic already. But I came back another 2 weeks after that, and I saw him in the hallway. He came right up to me, gave me a hug. He said, "Mr. Peace, I'm choosing love. I'm choosing kindness." He's 7 years old. If a 7-year-old, a first grader can do that, we can do that too, right? Where are my third graders at? Third graders? Hands down, hands down. I had a third grader come up to me, a third grader named Natalia. Natalia came up to me and she gave me this note. And she said, "Mr. Peace," she said, "what makes you happy?" And I said, "Well, doing what I love, like speaking at schools." She said, "Well, I haven't been happy for a long time. Her parents were fighting a lot and there's a lot of problems at home." But she came back at the end of the day and she gave me this. It says, "Love, Natalia." And it says, "Don't let the world change your smile. Let your smile change the world." She was choosing compassion and kindness too. This third grader, right? So we all can do this, guys, and we need to. There's a story of a 4-year-old girl. This 4-year-old girl, she was at this talk, and the speaker said, "Love is as big as this world. Love's as big as this world, and it's in all of our hearts." So the girl went up to the speaker after the talk. She said, "I don't understand. You said love is as big as this planet, as big as the earth, but it's in all of our hearts. So doesn't that mean that it's trying to burst out?" And he said, "That's exactly the point. If we choose it, if we choose to spread that love." And you look at this orange here, that once you peel an orange, right, that it's kind of like that smell. It gets all in your fingers and it's hard to get off and it stays on there for a couple of days and then the smell starts to spread around the room. That's the same thing for how we should be treating people too. This kindness spreads, this love spreads. Go to the next slide. And we need to focus. It's blurry on purpose. But we need to focus on the middle word. What does the middle word say? Love. Next slide. And look, Mitchell, if you all live to be 80 years old, and hopefully we're all at 80 and we're still kicking it, right? But if you live to be 80 years old, you'll have taken, on average, you'll have taken 23,000 breaths per day. And that's 673 million for 80 years. And heartbeats, your heart, you take about 115,000 a day. 3.4 billion for your whole life. We got to make as many of these count as possible, guys, and that means to include other people that really need us. Next slide. And Mark Twain, he once said the two most important days in your life is the day you're born and the day that you find out why. And if you look to your left and your right, the person to your left, right, the person in front of you and behind you, that's your purpose, guys. That's why you're here. To help other people around you, to be part of their family. Can you go to the next slide? Some of you already heard this and have it on your hands today. Third graders, this will be new for you. Give me 5, guys, we're almost done. Give me 5. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. This M that's on all your palms with the lines of your hand, and some of you have it on both hands. With the lines of your hand, there's an M, and that M, which I told you guys last time, stands for miracle. This was a class that sent me a picture of this to remember that they're all miracles, and to never forget how important and beautiful all of us are. Sometimes we got to help people around us, though, that don't see that. Next slide. So Albert Einstein, he said there's 2 ways to live. One is though nothing's a miracle, and one is though everything's a miracle. And guess what? His teachers growing up, Albert Einstein was a genius, right? But his teachers growing up, it's quoted, some of them called him stupid. Some of them said he was too stupid to learn anything. They told this to Albert Einstein. But guess what? He didn't believe that. He believed what his true friends, his best friends, told him, people that were worth his time, and he became a genius. And all of you need to know that there's a lot of opinions out there, but not all of them matter. What matters is that you believe this, and that your true best friends will see you for this no matter what. If something I shared today touched your heart, can you raise your hand? If something I shared touched your heart, hands down. So Mitchell, that means that I was able to touch your heart in 45 minutes. 45 minutes. So think about the impact you can have on someone's life over an entire school year, if you choose to, right? Over an entire lifetime. These bracelets that I wear, and I told this to the 4th graders, I told it to them last year, but I put about 10 or 12 of these on before every talk, and I got thousands of these. But all these bracelets were from students like you who said, Mr. Peace, thanks for being here today. Thanks for touching my heart. So now it's up to you guys to go and share that gift with someone else, of kindness, by how you live. Last slide. If you need to reach out to me, I'm going to have my cards to all your teachers. If they want to make copies of them, you guys can follow me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, my website. You can download music. Guys, we're almost done. Almost done. Peace. 1 second. We can talk at lunch a little bit if something's on your heart. Okay, I'll be around. But if you want to reach out to me, you can send me a message to it, and I always get back to you and just try to remind you that you guys are miracles and beautiful. You guys touch my heart. We'll have these shirts available too, One Race Human, and some other ones as well. But I'm going to close with some hip-hop to send us off on a good note. Sound good? All right. Let me get my zone. And I'm going to be sending the teachers some follow-up resources to keep the conversation going, along with these lyrics, and hopefully to do a school-wide kindness pledge. I'll let you know about that. 2 fingers up for peace. I get all of my hip-hop skills from your assistant principal. Here we go. Mic check.
Before everyone gets up and starts walking.
DJ, spin that track. All right, so 2 fingers up for peace, and just rock from west to east. Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Listen, it's up to us all to put a stop to the bull in the classroom halls and within these walls. I want to go to school, no matter the grade. I feel safe, I feel loved and celebrated. So I gotta put myself in the other person's shoes, cause what I say might hurt and stay stuck like glue on the other person's heart, and that's just not right. I gotta stand up, make sure for what I know is right. If I see someone get holy, now think of this rap and do what I can, all that I can to take action. Now is the time, and it's okay to tell an adult or a teacher and get some help. Yo, it's up to us all to put a stop to the bull in the classroom halls and within these walls. I want to go to school, no matter the grade. I feel safe, I feel loved and celebrated. So starting right now, going to make a pledge to treat everyone like I treat my best friend. Now is the time, and today is the day. Put a stop to the bullying. No more pain, no more pain, no more haterade. Just the Gatorade, or the Powerade, or the Minute Maid. Now we got it made. touched my heart, guys. Peace.
That was really cool. Boys and girls, when you walk away from this auditorium, I hope you remember the message. You always have a choice. How do we finish this? Treat others the way you want to be treated. Here at the Mitchell School family, we follow what Mr. Peace is talking to us about. Respect, kindness. We're treating others the way we want to be treated, and we don't bully others. Instead, we help and support one another. So think of that as you go out into the rest of the school day today. Boys and girls, we really appreciate Mr. Peace. Can you show him some appreciation again?